What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin Svenson, and today is November 19th. It is Tuesday, and Bitcoin touched 94,000 today, a new all-time high. Bitcoin saw a straight shot up from our descending broadening wedge pattern and actually hit the target of this pattern, which was 91 to 94,000. And if you're one of the people that is subscribed to this channel and you're a regular viewer, you would know that 94,000 is the target that we set for the descending broadening wedge. A couple months ago, we've been talking about this for actually a very long time. We've been discussing that this descending broadening wedge that we formed from March into October, according to the textbook, has a target of 91 to 94,000, and we have reached that target. Just to give you guys a quick refresher, let's play the clip. This is the descending broadening wedge, this pattern right here that we are currently in, this is a Twitter post, but we're currently sitting at the resistance. The textbook diagram suggests that the price objective from the high to the low of the pattern, just to remind you, high of the pattern to the low of the pattern, extrapolate that, place it on the breakout zone, and right here, matching it up, dragging that onto the potential breakout zone, and that puts us up towards 94,000. Apparently, if we consider that this is the resistance and you're measuring from the breakout, now it's about 94. And there you go, guys. That is the target that we set. Bitcoin has reached that target. What is going to happen now? That is the question. Well, since Bitcoin has reached this target of the descending broadening wedge, which is what the textbook told us that should be the target, 91 to 94,000, at this point, you could expect volatility moves back to the downside. Now, I'm not just going to flip bearish on a dime just because we hit a textbook target. We would also need to see confirmation on price action, right? I mean, Bitcoin is still trending up. Down here, this is 68,000. We came all the way up and it's still higher lows. And Bitcoin is currently fighting this resistance, the previous all-time high, about 93,200 or so. That is what we're fighting today. And the breakout target of this pattern from high to low, and you take that, place it on the breakout zone, the target of this pattern is sitting above 100,000. So there is still a potential for Bitcoin to maintain momentum and reach that target of this formation. But what I'm talking about with the volatility, having reached the descending broadening wedge target, is that if Bitcoin was to, let's say, reject this zone and began to come down and broke below our upward sloping trend line, that's when I'd be looking for a major correction, a correction that we have not seen yet above the all-time high. Since we broke the all-time high, there was really not much downside at all. I mean, we had one move from 93 to 86.7, 7% down, which is really nothing in terms of Bitcoin. Bitcoin, when we're talking about Bitcoin corrections in previous cycles, well, they're pretty substantial, much more than 7%. I mean, easily a correction from this point could take us down into the 80s. Now, a lot of people are going to be scared that I'm talking about a correction in the short term. This is the 4-hour chart. If we're holding this, we're maintaining this zone and we bounce again, well, that's still bullish. Still an uptrend, still have higher lows. If we come down and we start to fail this uptrend line, then I'm looking for much further moves down, a big washout of the market, because you can imagine there's probably a lot of people that went long up here. It'd be a really good way to generate liquidity to buy the dip for larger players if the price was to wash people out before a move up. Right? And so that extrapolation of this pattern, if you were to place it on the potential breakout zone to the downside, would land us around 83,500. So that could be the downside target if we were to turn around and come down 83.5. And that still puts us well above the previous all-time high. Right? Even if we saw a dip like that, it's really not the end of the world. Bitcoin would still be, 13, almost 14% above the previous all-time high. The size of that correction, if it happened soon, which it doesn't have to, that would be, 11%. That's really nothing, right? In terms of Bitcoin, a lot of past bull markets, 2017, we saw corrections that were like 40%. So 11% down would be pretty nice. It'd be like a pretty smooth dip. Maybe not for people that are new to the market or not used to this market, but for people that are crypto Bitcoin veterans, this would be considered a pretty smooth dip of 11%. Perfectly fine. And I do think that even if that did happen, we would likely recover and continue the trend. Right? We have not reached our price targets or our time targets yet on this trend. And just to repeat myself again, Bitcoin is still bullish and it's still in an uptrend, and the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. And for the short term, that would just mean holding this trend line. So we got to do that. If we can do that, then we might just continue up and maybe reach the 100K level. If we fail this trend line, well, we might look for 83,500. At this point, people are going to say, oh, Kevin, you're saying it could go up or it could go down. I mean, what more do you want? We reached the descending broadening wedge target that we called for quite a long time, right? That was the target. We reached it. Since we reached the textbook target, I am going to be a little bit more cautious now. A little bit more cautious because we hit our target for this time period. But it doesn't mean that it's all over, even if we do see a correction. Looking at Bitcoin's price like this, so we can see a little bit larger scale and pulling over the parabolic curve pattern diagram, we can see that currently we're at base 4 in theory. Each base is defined by a touch off the trend line. Touching the trend line, then bouncing. That's a base. So we have the beginning, base 1, then base 2, and the next time we touched it was right here, that 49K touch. That is base 3. In the middle of base 3 is 62,000. And from base 3, according to the textbook, the price doubles. And it's only been, a few weeks since our breakout. We're already hitting 94,000. Now, base 4, we would also, according to the textbook, you might chop there a little bit. You might get a little bit of volatility. So we hit the descending broadening wedge target to take us up to 94,000, base 4, look for some choppy price action to then run again to the ultimate target for this parabolic trend, which is 124,000. The middle of this range, the middle of base 3 is 62,000. The price doubles. That's 124,000 roughly. But before we get there, it's likely that we get some shakeups, some shakeouts, and then look to run up there, right? That should not be a surprising event if it does occur. So that means in theory, whether we've already hit the top at 94 or we go to 102,000, then look to test down, into the 80s again, somewhere into the 80s most likely, before chopping and then running. Somewhere at the beginning of 2025 is when we would punch up again. And we've been talking about this for a very long time on this channel. We're just going with the textbook. It's not really an opinion thing. It's just sort of take the textbook, apply it to Bitcoin's trend, and there you go. And right now, the textbook is saying that before getting to your ultimate target of 124,000, you likely get base 4, some chop along the way, the creation of a base. And what does that mean? It actually means that you would want to get towards that trend line and touch it and then run again. That means sideways action. That means dips, bounces, rebounds, a little bit of confusion for some people. That is to be expected in these bull trends at some point. But just to remind you, we have hit the descending broadening wedge target. That makes it likely that this could be a peak zone. Could be. It's probably a little early to say that, but just throwing it out there. Overall, guys, expect volatility. Bitcoin's been doing really well. And, no bull market is a straight line. It's usually areas where we have chop, pullbacks, rebounds by the dip zones before getting up to your much higher targets. 124,000 may not be the peak of the cycle, but it is going to be the end of the parabola, which means, beginning of 2025, if we get there, maybe look to cool off and then run up again towards the end of 2025. So that's how I'm seeing this right now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, join the Patreon if you want extra content. If you want to contact me directly, join our morning voice chats in the Discord. You can only get in Discord by being a Patreon member. Join today, and I'll see you guys in the next video.